a long time ago, I think it was in 2009, I made a video called The Golden Age, and I didn't post it. It was very rare for me in those years to not post the stuff that I recorded. Every once in a while, I'd look at it and think, that's too preachy, it's too this or that, and I wouldn't. It was actually very, very rare. I mean, and if you go back and look at my old stuff, especially on the CrossMac channel, that's CROSSMACK, check it out. That was the early days. 2006 is when I got started making internet videos. I mean, there's garbage, utter garbage up. I mean, obviously, it's still cool to see what I was going through, but like some of that stuff is just like, why did you post that? It'd be like me eating a carrot stoned out of my mind, not talking for 5 minutes. Just bizarre shit. So to not post this video called The Golden Age was weird. And for years after, I wondered, had I posted that video, would we have entered a golden age? Because I felt like we weren't in one for the last 15 years. Since 2009, I felt like something happened. Excuse me. I had a lot of faith in Obama. Coming into office, I was like, wow, he saved us. And I was like, we've entered a golden age, but didn't go up. And I sat on it. And now there's a lot of talk about being in a golden age. And it's true, we are in a golden age. And I think we have been for a while, but particularly right now. The reason I thought of it in '09 is because of this game Civilization. You've probably heard of it. It's a video game. And in the game, at the time, I think I was playing Civilization 4. The way you would trigger a golden age for your civilization, you know, it's a strategy game. You move your pieces around, you pick a country, you play turn by turn, and you advance and build your civilization. And you can send your civilization into a golden age. The way you would do it is you would have multiple great people appear in your civilization. Every once in a while, you'd have a great person would appear. It'd be like a great artist has appeared in your civilization, and you could do stuff with them. You could do like a cultural bomb. You could have them produce a bunch, like a great song, or you'd have a great engineer would appear, and you could have them build like a wonder or contribute to like building infrastructure. Or one of the things you could do is have multiple great people come together and trigger a golden age. And that's what we've done. This internet has allowed us to bring some of the best minds together. And I'm talking about particularly Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And I'm going to name off some names of people, whether you like them or not, it doesn't really matter. Great, like you would say Alexander the Great, psychotic, murdering warmonger. You know, Genghis Khan, you consider him a great leader. Hitler, he'd be considered like a great leader, even though he was like a horrible, evil dude. But like greatness just means large in scope and scale. So like great people, when they come, I guess you could have evil, great people too that could potentially trigger a golden age. But for whatever reason, we've got these brilliant, very famous, very intelligent, and again, intelligence doesn't dictate morals either. You could have very intelligent people that are very evil as well. But like these great people in scope come together and they start communicating. And they become friends. I just saw Jordan Peterson and Tony Robbins doing a video together. And it's sparking this vibe. How can I describe it? This interactive interference pattern. And sometimes in physics, you have interference. You've got two types of interference. You've got constructive interference, coherent interference, and that's what you call amplification. That's when you have two waves that are the same on top of each other. It produces an amplification. When you have deconstructive or decoherent interference, it causes a mutation, or I guess you would say a mutant, mute. I say it as in the quieting of a disturbance, the opposite of amplification, deamplification. So interference can be very good for amplifying if it's the right kind of interference. And you've got these interference patterns that are being created by great people coming together and communicating. You're getting these people from the star sector and people from the political realm and people from the math realm. Like Joe Rogan is having Eric Weinstein on his Weinstein. I was like, Weinstein? No, it's Weinstein like Einstein. Jeffrey Epstein is the one that's not like Einstein. Epstein, Weinstein. Joe Rogan's like having these great people from different sectors on his show, and then he has them on together, and you see these like formations of thought where like people are like, I never would have thought of that. And they're also bringing like it's enhancing people's communication, because you see a lot of people in strange sectors like math, art, in engineering and science and mathematics. They're not necessarily the best communicators by nature. They're very good at math, very good at structure and thoughts and putting pieces together. But when it comes to explaining themselves, sometimes they let their structures do the speaking. Every once in a while you'll get an engineer that's a great, Steve Jobs, for instance, a great engineer that is a great communicator. But it was Steve Wozniak that was the engineer. Jobs was the communicator. And those two came together to form that golden company, Apple. So that instance of like these podcasts where we're having phenomenal humans from alternating sectors come together to see each other as people and realize like, oh, we're all kind of the same. Like, we're different. We're obviously different, but we're very similar, man. And that's like bringing confidence to the crowd, to the people, to the individuals. We're realizing like we are in this together. This is us. This world is us. And like, you'll see that with great leaders too. Like, even if leaders that maybe Lex Friedman just went to interview Volodymyr Zelensky, and he's on his way to interview Vladimir Putin next. And then you'll see Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky in a room together communicating, and Donald Trump will be there, and you'll have Zelensky will come on Rogan and Putin will come on Rogan. And then we'll have these like community building experiences. We realize, oh, we don't have to kill each other anymore. We can trade. We really can now. This is getting easier. It's easier. This internet's a blessing. It is a double-edged sword, of course, but what a valuable double-edged sword this is. This opportunity, this telecom, intercom. And so you enter a golden age. Doesn't mean you win. You might still get obliterated while you're in the middle of a golden age. But what happens in a golden age, at least in the game Civilization, oh, look at this. It's my most recent subscriber on the page. Who is that? Neil. Thank you, Neil. Neil. I'm gonna leave that up, Neil. You're a great person. Thanks for subscribing. Subscribe to the video, to the channel also. It helps me a lot in the algorithm, and also it's very cool to have you here. When you're in a golden age, at least in the game, and I like to think this metaphor carries through, you just enhance your production capabilities. Your GDP goes up. Sometimes your people can move farther, faster. Like, people have more vigor. In the game, like, your troops can move an extra space per turn or something like that. But like, depends on who you are. Like, different golden ages might cause different responses and reactions in the game. But realistically, it just enhances like productive capacity. And because it gives people, there's this sense of hope that like drives people forward. It's biological and genetic. It translates across animal kingdoms. Like, you'll see it in the insect kingdom. Jordan Peterson, I'm referencing this Tony Robbins, Jordan Peterson interview that went up yesterday on Jordan's channel, which you should watch. Extremely cool. I only saw the first 40 minutes so far. Fascinating. And Tony Robbins is talking about, like, he goes up on stage 14 hours a day. He'll do like 4 days in a row, he'll do 12 hours on stage where he's hyping people and explaining about how you can find your path. You can see your destination, and then all of a sudden the path becomes clear for you. And he goes and he goes and he goes, and they tested him, and his testosterone goes. He'll burn 11,000 calories in a day doing this stuff, and his testosterone spikes, but the cortisol doesn't spike along with it. He's just in this state of like transience. And Peterson was like, it's actually interesting because this happens in the animal kingdom, particularly in the bee populations. What'll happen is if a bee finds like a very valuable source of resource of some sort, like they stumble upon a rich flower bed of pollen, and it's not far, so like you won't have to expend much energy. There's a great reward for low energy. The bee will come back to the hive, and the way it will explain this to the hive is it will dance. But the way it dances is how it will communicate the value. If it dances for longer, more intense periods, if it gives it a really intense, long, it explains to the colony how far the resource is, how valuable the resource is. And what it's doing is it's showing the colony that it is worth me expending this amount of energy to explain to you the value of what I believe is present. And the colony will see it willing to sacrifice 11,000 calories in a day. And without even thinking, they'll see this is real. This is not, it's not a thought. It's not like, okay, I believe. It's like, I sense you. I feel you. My mirror neurons are kicking in, and I get you, and I believe you. And That's how they communicate. So it's kind of similar with humanity. Tone, for instance, they say, like, this is one of my issues with text and people communicating in text, is it's a lot like writing on a note and like handing it to someone, and then they pick up the note and they're like, okay, and then they write on a note and then they hand it back and you're like, okay, there's no tone. It's without context. Context means with text. So the funny thing is, to say text has no context, you're missing context, is kind of a strange misnomer because you're reusing the word text, but it's lacking the context of tone, the intensity, the value of the communication. A lot of the value is lost without the tone, because the tone is the dance. It's part of the dance. It's part of the explanation of how real it is to you, of how much you truly believe what you're explaining. And so I highly encourage you to use video, an internet video, to communicate your thoughts. Text is exceptionally awesome for delivering short bursts of data, like directions. I'll be at this place at this time. You hand that to them. But when you're trying to explain a value to people, and you really want them to know and to feel it and to believe it, video's where it's at. And you might say audio too. Audio's spectacular, but being able to watch the dance is a big part of it, man. Being able to see the energy just burning off the guy. Like right now, my body temperature is literally going up. I can feel the heat. It's part of the intensity of knowing, of believing. It's pretty cool. And just watching Jordan and Tony talk about it, I started to feel it. And this is the golden age. This is part of why we're in a golden age right now, is because we're able to perceive and sense each other and see each other in real time. Like they had the conversation 3 days ago. Now I'm there with them. I didn't have to go rent a video. I didn't have to wait for it to come up on TV. It wasn't edited. I mean, it was edited, but it wasn't like edited by some producers that were thought, maybe that message is a little too this, that. No. It's just who I wanted to see, and they were being real. And so while you're in this golden age of production, obviously you can still lose in the game. You could still lose the game, but you're hyping your production. We're in that place right now. Production's hyping, which is good because our economy had been suffering. So this Department of Government Efficiency is very good. You can see it on the U.S. debt clock. In fact, let me see if I can pull this up. U.S. debt clock. I'm going to put my glasses on here really quick. U.S. debt clock. It's a website, and it's let me see if I can just pull this up. Pull it here and do this. And then this. I think this will pull it up. This is our U.S. national debt clock. Right here you see our U.S. national debt going up. It's going up, I've estimated, I don't know, $60,000 a second. $50,000 a second. Kind of. I haven't actually measured it, but it looks like it's going up about $50,000 a second. It's been crushing my will to live for 4 or 5 years. I'm like, oh God. Look at this. That's spiraling out of control. What do we do? And then they just threw this thing on after they started the Department of Government Efficiency, a Doge clock, and I've been told it's accurate. The amount of money that we're saving is about $40,000 a second. It's starting way behind. This has a big lead, but it's traveling at a very similar pace already. The amount of money that we seem to be saving as a nation on some of these cuts that have been made is getting close to the amount of money that we're spending. And this is also accounting for inflation, which might be more of a rug pull. Like we might be able to avoid paying off a lot of the, the interest, not the inflation, the interest. We might be able to avoid paying a lot of this interest until, not that we want to, but this is very promising. And this is just making cuts. This isn't actually, we have really yet to expand on the production itself. So I've been studying a lot of graphene research. And if you know me, you know that I love graphene. And Jim Tour, who I've interviewed on the channel, is a pioneering scientist out of Rice University. Works with Dewey Luong, who I've also interviewed Dewey Luong. You can watch my interview with Dewey. He's the guy that discovered the flash Joule heating process where you put carbon in a quartz crystal tube and then run an electrical current through the stuff, carbon of whatever. It could be rotten food, it could be plastic, it could be human waste. And you pulse it, 3,000 degree Kelvin, just over 3,000 degree Kelvin. Pulse it. I think it's like 0.01 milliseconds. Bop, 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 bop. You hit it with this super, super, super hot electricity. It flashes bright, bright, bright. And a lot of the materials in this garbage, whatever you have in there, sublimate. So like if there's like aluminum in there, it'll sublimate because it's so hot, it'll turn from solid to gas. It'll leave. But the carbon turns into graphene. It becomes super hot, all the bonds break, and then when it cools down, it reforms into the easiest structure of carbon, which is the hexagonal lattice, the graphene itself. And you're left with this powder, this bulk graphene from the process. And it's cheap. The numbers. I don't want to misrepresent the numbers, but I'm talking like $30 to run the electricity to get like, I don't know, a gram of graphene or something. It's profitable. Essentially, it's profitable is what I'm saying. I'll actually put a link to the video I was watching of Jim giving a lecture talking about these numbers that they're stumbling upon. So we're like at the age now where we can recover carbon and convert it into graphene, and then you put it into, say, roads, into concrete. What is that? You've got cement, which then you mix that with rocks, you turn it into concrete. Concrete gives off, I think it's 8% of all of our global CO2 emissions. And because of the strength and the durability of what the graphene adds to the concrete, you get like, I don't know, 20% more out of your I'm giving kind of random estimations of numbers from this video I was watching. Jim gives more accurate anticipatory results. And you cut down greenhouse emissions, you make the concrete cheaper, and a lot of things, you make it lighter, you make it stronger. You can do it with roads as well. You can put it in asphalt. Asphalt's like the sludge left over at the bottom of a lot of petrochemical products. And it makes roads 2 to 3 times stronger. They'll last 2 to 3 times longer. This is like basic uses for this bulk graphene. Golden age shit. And I've had the luxury and pleasure and really like blessing to interview these guys and become pretty good friends with them. I'm really looking forward to working more with the people involved in the flash graphene process. The company that they've started is called Universal Matter. Highly recommend checking out Universal Matter. And so that is like the production enhancement. So yes, the Department of Government Efficiency is cutting waste. That's a huge part of reducing debt. And now you increase production. And these two things together, it's going to be a heavy hammer swing, man, where all of a sudden we're very profitable. We're creating a large amount of GDP, which is gross domestic product. When you think of value, think of not money, but GDP. What are we producing? What's our gross domestic product anyway? And you can go even further. You realize, like, okay, sure, say we have $30 trillion in debt. This is a little esoteric, but I'll say it anyway. Say we have $30 trillion in debt. Okay. If all of a sudden everything costs half as much because, say, we have a new fuel source, we've perfected our hydrogen system, and now instead of a $3.60 a gallon to fill up your tank, it costs $1.30 a gallon, or that would be $1.80 a gallon. Just for whatever reason, or less, or whatever. But for whatever reason, the cost of everything is cut in half because of fuel. Let's say that happens. The debt will still say 30 trillion, but that real number is 15 trillion. So although it will still have the same number on the book, the value of our work has doubled. And so the real value of the debt has been cut in half because it's a inverse relationship. Value of production versus cost of debt. And so that's what's happening right now too. It's a matter of like taking these pieces and plugging them in, and all of a sudden you'll see this whole fucking thing light up. Like we've got this wonderful, wonderful structural system in place now, and it's just time to put the pieces together. I'm very excited about the flash, particularly the flash Joule heating process. It's a basic, simple process. It's amazing that Dewey discovered it, how he did. He's an excellent dude, the kind of guy that sleeps on the floor, works 12, 18 hours a day, getting stuff done, building, rebuilding, experimenting with, with different machines and ways to scale this production, this graphene production. One of the interesting things about it is it gives off hydrogen as a byproduct. And so you can capture that hydrogen and then utilize it as fuel. That's going to happen too. Jim and I talked a lot about that in our interview. You'll find it. I think it's God and Gravity is the name of it. Ian Crossland and Jim Tour. It's also in his channel, James Tour. About a year and a half ago, I think we did that roughly. And so for every kilogram, at least the numbers were at that time, for every kilogram of hydrogen that's produced in this process, that's recovered, you're making about $4.50 of bulk graphene. It used to be that you would have to spend money to make hydrogen. You're like, it costs so much electricity to make the hydrogen through like electrolysis or whatever, where you're like electrocuting water and releasing the hydrogen. It just costs so much money on electricity. It wasn't worth creating. But now you actually have product after you make the stuff. It's not only reduced the cost, it's inverted the structure. It doesn't cost, there's still a cost to produce the energy to kick this whole thing off, but you end up making, after the electricity, the money spent on the electricity, $4.50 in profit. As the numbers were at the time. The cost of graphene is going down as well, so, that's good, but also like if the quicker we step on this, the more money we're going to make globally by selling it. But I think it's such a simple process that most countries around the world will be utilizing it pretty quick. I just realized that my audio might be kind of low for this. Hopefully the audio is good. You probably had it turned up if it was a little quiet. I had my my microphone. I think it was cued down a little because I was playing guitar into it before. So welcome to the golden age. We've been here for a while. It's nice to acknowledge it. What do you want to do with all this production potential? Give it to me. Leave it in the comments. What's your most exciting production capacity event? How do you want to see the world change for the better? Tell me in the comments. I love reading this stuff. Catch you later.